I soon became known as the badass lifeguard. So in the summers of '08 and '09, I was a lifeguard at a locally private swimming pool. I was known for being a really nice laid-back kid. I would give some leeway for those who liked a small running start to dive into the deep end, let people hold others on their shoulders, things like that. Even though I was laid back most of the time, I still had to crack the whip every now and then. A lot of kids would curse loudly or talk about things that shouldn't be said in a family environment. I had a lot of friends who went to the pool, most of them being girls. I remember one day when a friend came up to me during a break and told me a kid was being really weird and saying gross things to her. I told her if it happens again to let me know. A few minutes after break ends, I'm in my chair and find her in the shallower side of the pool with some of our other friends. I then notice a guy, a few years older than us, maybe mid-20s, 6'2", wade up to her and her friends. He says something. I couldn't make out what it is. See the girls squirm and make uncomfortable faces, and this guy starts laughing. My friend Megan then comes swimming over to me, saying he did it again. I tell her that I saw and immediately blow my whistle. Now, I'm sure all of you can remember swimming at a pool and hearing the lifeguard's whistle, and how quiet it gets when everybody turns to look at them. That's what happened. I look at him and shout, "Hey!" I realize I didn't know his name. I asked Megan if she knew. It was Dylan. So again I shout, "Hey, Dylan, come here!" I tell Megan to leave as he swims over. By this time, the people realized it had nothing to do with them and went back to their own thing. When he gets to me, I lean down and tell him that I know he's been saying inappropriate things to my friends and he needs to stop, or I'll kick him out. He laughs it off, saying it's no big deal and that he was only messing around. I correct him, saying it is a big deal and to not to do it anymore. He agrees, and I let him go. A few hours later, the pool is getting ready to close. I hear a scream and look to see Megan with her jaw dropped and swimming away from Dylan very fast with a look of utter shock on her face. Then, another friend, Elizabeth, does the same thing, and again, Noelle does it too. All the while, Dylan is laughing his ass off. I tried getting their attention, but without even looking at me or talking, my friends leave the pool and walk to the Sound, which is literally a football field away. Dylan right behind them. I wanted to go after them, but I needed to close the pool up. After doing so in a very fast and sloppy manner, I head over there as fast as possible to find my friends yelling at Dylan to leave them alone. A few other patrons from the pool headed over to the Sound for some extra swimming, so I know they were watching this all go down. It wasn't a quiet scene. I demanded to know what was going on, and Noelle told me that when the pool was getting ready to close up, Dylan went around and started poking his toes and fingers into their butts. It wasn't just them either. He had done it to several girls while there. They just didn't bother to do anything about it. I was pissed. I was really pissed. Not only because he was doing it to my friends, but because I, as a lifeguard, should have seen this as it happened and stopped it. I was fuming, screaming at this guy about why he would do such a thing. He, still laughing about it, tells me to calm down. I tell him to fuck right off before I put his ass to the sand. Keep in mind that he's 6'2" and I'm only 5'8". When I said this, he went from laughing to being quite serious. He said something along the lines of, "You have no idea what I'd do to you, kid. Or what I'd do to those girls if given the chance." Nope. I wasn't having it. He went too far with that one. Still being in my lifeguard attire, I take my whistle off and hand it to Elizabeth, take my flip-flops off and kick them to the side, pull my sunglasses off my shirt collar, and set them with Elizabeth. I look him in the eyes while putting my fist up, and said, I wasn't giving him the chance. I start walking towards him when I see him finally realize that I was not messing around. He quickly puts his fist up, and as I'm about in range, he throws an early punch, missing me by a few inches. I take the opportunity to rush in and throw a quick 1-2 and hit him at about chin-nose level, knocking him back a few steps. I shoot in for a takedown. I grab him, pick him up onto my right shoulder and slam him down into the sand, driving my shoulder into his stomach on impact. I hear him wheezing and gasping for air, with a little blood coming from his nose. I stand up and look at him. I tell him, if I ever see him at my pool again, I'll make it much, much worse. By this time, there was a small crowd of people. Most of them were from the pool watching, including my friends. I turned to them and tell them to let's go. I gave them all a ride back to their houses and told them that, if they ever see him again, to find the closest adult and stay near them and keep 911 ready to call. Though, we never did see him again though. Megan told me later on that she read in the paper about a guy named Dylan who was being charged with rape. She didn't recognize that last name. But then again, we never learned this. Updates. It's become quite apparent that a lot of you think this story is made up. I seriously have no idea what would make you people think that. It is the fact that it ended with me doing something to the person instead of just running away and calling the cops or ignoring the whole thing. A lot of you are also saying that I should have called the cops because of the assault. And you know what? You're right. I really should have. But being a 16-year-old kid, I didn't think like that. I was thinking more about kicking this guy's ass to get my friends away from him. If it was today, I still would have kicked his ass, but I would have been smarter. I would have actually called the cops afterwards. And there really is no reason for you guys to doubt my story. If you do, you might as well start calling everybody else who posts in the sub a liar. Waterpark creep. This happened in the summer of 2013. I was working at a water park as an aquatic supervisor, basically being in charge of the lifeguards. I was making my rounds through the park when I was at the top of a slide tower that overlooked the parking lot. Sometimes I'll occasionally look out that way to see the car count or if there's garbage. To this day, I can't explain how, but out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a small green car slowly pulling up towards the front entrance area, then stopped for about 10 minutes. It was parked in an illegal spot, so I radioed down to the operations staff to have him move his car. I then noticed that it seemed to be shaking a little bit, and upon further inspection, I could see the driver's bare thigh and his left arm jiggling up and down quickly. I went from confused as hell to 2 + 2 = oh my god, this guy is jacking it in his car. I radioed again and told the operations staff to get the guy quickly. On the ground, as soon as the staff came close to the car, the guy peeled out of the parking lot. They must have saw an even worse sight. I have worked at the water park for 4 years, and that was the first time I have ever witnessed a truly perverted individual. So man in green car, let's not meet, and you stay away from water parks. Poolboy stalker. So, when I was 16 to 17 years old, I worked as a lifeguard at a private pool in my neighborhood. You had to be a member, and each member was assigned a member ID. You could buy a friend or guest pass. During the summers on Friday night, We had what we called Friday night cheers, where we would have a band play. The adults would sit around the bar and drink, and all the kids would come and swim till about 10 p.m. One night, I was working cheers. I was at the diving well, and there was a guy and his friend trying to splash me while going off the diving board. I didn't think anything of it, because every kid tries to splash the lifeguard. Yet, as it was getting close to closing, I started to go around and clean up all the tables. The diving board guy started to follow me around and make small talk. So, I'm a very friendly person, so I started having a conversation with him. He tells me his name and that he is 19 and home from college. He then asked me for my number. I tell him no, I don't give out my number to strangers and that I have a boyfriend. Not sure if I did at the time though. He won't stop asking, saying he just wants to be friends, so I leave and go sit in the guard shack. A couple days later, I'm working and he's there again. We aren't supposed to talk to people while on duty, but he won't go away, so I start to ignore him. He stops talking, but just kind of hangs out in the water right by me. A guy I work with comes to take my spot, so I can go relieve another guard at another station. The guy follows, but I ignore him. This continues every day. One day, I get a text from a number that I don't know. I ask who it is, and it's the guy from the pool. The only way that I can think that the guy got my number is from my schedule that hangs in the guard shack right by the door, which is always open. I tell him he needs to stop texting me and following me around. The texts stop, but he continues to come to the pool every day and follow me. I finally tell my manager, and she says the next time he comes in, they will make sure he really is a member. Sometimes people will give their friends their member number if they know a picture isn't attached to it on the computer. So he comes in and they ask for an ID. It doesn't match the information on the computer, and his ID says he is 27. I don't know why, but they let him in anyways. He comes over to me, and as soon as he gets 5 feet away, my manager comes over and tells me to go take my break. I come back 15 minutes later, and she had kicked him out already. I never seen him since. I know, it's not as bad as other people's experiences on here, but it really pissed me off that he just would not leave me alone. I know where he was conceived, and then some. Well, I'll try to type this out in 15 minutes because I need to study. But I was intrigued by these stories and felt I need to share one of my many creepy encounters in the city I live in. I was raised to be a very friendly girl, even to strangers, as in I smile, make small talk, even get a few relevant sentences or maybe a joke in. I live in what's considered a southern state in America. Anyways, it's customary to do at least smile to someone passing. As I was lifeguarding at a pool a few summers ago, I was sitting comfortably in my lifeguard stand near the shallow end and watching the regulars come and go, families, couples, children, the elderly. However, this one day, a man that I did not recognize rolls out of the men's changing room in a wheelchair. I thought he must be a guest for the day or a new member. As he passed off his ID card to the lifeguard at the front desk, he rolls to the shallow end of the pool, close to where I am, and stops about 15 feet away from me, where the entrance steps to the pool are. Intent on watching the pool, I keep him in my peripheral vision and did not make any glances his way, because I knew that meant I was going to have to say hi, since he was looking my direction. and I got a weird vibe from the way his approach and posture was in his wheelchair already. He begins to push his body weight upwards with a lot of effort, using his hands to push off the arm handles, and at the same time, he accidentally let his cane roll off his lap. At this point, I look his way to see where the cane is going, and it just hits the floor. He looks my direction and points to it as he is already standing and motions for help. Since the lifeguard stand I was in was low to the ground, with one step, I get out of my chair and put a smile on my face and pick up the cane for him. As I pass it to him, I see his face more clearly. His shallow dark eyes were piercing as they rested above dark bags and creases. His hairline receded far back above his forehead, and his shoulder-length black hair was a mix of matted and slimy looking. His nose and growing smile resembled a mix of Rob Schneider and Deuce Bigelow and Pee Wee Herman. His pale, lanky body seemed underfed, unhealthy. He starts off with a, well, thank you, lady, in a voice that can only be related to Quagmire from Family Guy. I cringed. I said, you're welcome, and went back to my lifeguard stand. He sat back down in his wheelchair and rolled over next to me. He said, "You're really pretty. Where are you from?" I said, "This city. I am from here." I tried not to extend the conversation by asking any questions. He says, good. Well, that's good. But where are your parents from?" I say Asia. I can feel him scouring my bathing suit with his eyes, and I am disgusted and just want him to go in the pool already or leave. He continues to make small talk and says, "Well, my mom is from Asia, and my dad is from Norway." I responded with a, "Really? Wow, awesome." Then he continues, "But I was conceived in the Philippines, and my sister was conceived in Hawaii, and born in the States like me." Then he pauses and just stares at me with those dark, piercing eyes. I pause my thought process, too, after hearing that. I think to myself, what? Did he just tell me where he and his sister were conceived? At this point, it was time for me to rotate the outdoor pool, so once my coworker Barbara took my spot, he follows me outside. He continues as I walk outside. Yeah, I visited Asia many times and it was great. Blue waters, beautiful girls like you. I tried to be polite and say, thanks, huh? But I think he could sense my nervousness already. I thankfully have a tall lifeguard stand to sit in on, so I position my umbrella at an angle so I can't be bothered anymore. He gets up from his wheelchair, climbs down the ladder steps into the pool, and does a weird backwards float with wide eyes open the old time. He begins to swim backwards and floats towards the teens and a little boy about 7 or 8 years old, swimming around by himself. I thought, great, where's this kid's parents? I look around, and there were just too many adults lounging around without much care. The next thing I noticed is the worst thing. I look back in the direction of this man, and it turns out he's wearing boxers, a pale overused creamish pink color, and his dick is sticking up and out of the gap of the boxers. I blow my whistle long and loud, and of course he doesn't hear it. He continues to float backwards towards the boy, and I yell at the boy to get out of the pool now. I radio on the walkie-talkie to the indoor pool to get our manager since there is a man exposing himself. Immediately, the mom of the boy is rushing to grab her son and covers her son with a towel and takes him far away to their belongings. My boss comes out and yells at him to get out from the side of the pool. The pool is cleared, and everyone is to leave except the woman, who is the mom of the boy, who wants to make a statement once police are called. The outdoor guards, myself, and my manager are there waiting with this man outside for police to arrive. He's not even allowed to go back to the locker. He is drenched in water. I realize he did not even have a towel and is still trying to make small talk with us while sitting back down in his wheelchair. I am beyond disgusted and asked to leave. The boss lets me go back to the indoor pool to write my own statements of events for documentation. He was arrested and is banned from our pool for good. I don't know what happened to his case afterwards, so lanky, pale, dark-eyed, haired man from the pool with a squealing voice. Let's not meet ever again.